Morning and welcome to Adult Education at Valley Community Presbyterian Church. I'm Jim Cook, Parish Associate here, and it's a privilege to be with you on this beautiful morning. I hope that you feel the newness that sun offers to us and the beginning of a life that we can live that will matter. We don't always have control over what we're going to teach. We think we do. But then some certain things might occur, and we need to let our hearts and our minds come together and speak our feelings. If we believe the testimony in the defense of Derek Chauvin, then the killing of George Floyd was justified. If the killing of Daunte Wright was an accident and Officer Kim Potter had to use force because it was such a hostile situation, it had to happen. A street in Chicago in the South Side, if Eric Stillman had to shoot and kill a 13-year-old Adam Toledo because he posed such a threat, then that needed to be done as well. Representative Edgar Gonzalez of the Illinois State Legislature went to the floor of his body and he made this statement, and it could have been made in this legislature in Minnesota, it could have been made at the Congress of the United States. Rodriguez said this: "So, if you put your hands up, they shoot. If you put your hands down, they shoot. If you walk, if you run, if you hide, if you sleep, if you do exactly as they say, they will shoot." So I ask the members of this chamber, what are we supposed to do? Before, some of you who are streaming turned this off because you thought it was going to be a religious time rather than a political time or a social cultural time. I want to let you know that at 38th in Chicago and at 63rd and Catherine Drive and in the south side of Chicago, Jesus is on the street. Jesus cares. Jesus comforts those who are afflicted. Jesus looks at those who are lawless and violent prone, and he says, I want to afflict your comfort. You don't have a right to do that. This is part of who we are spiritually. So I pray that you will stay tuned in. I don't know when it happened, at some older age, some of you might say at my senile age, I quit seeking to have my religious beliefs approved. I suppose I did that most of my ministerial life, sought approval for my religious beliefs, because I knew there were people out here church shopping, consumer ecclesiologists. They wanted to buy their way into a church that said what they wanted to hear, that told them what made them feel better. And I wanted my church to make them feel better. I wanted them to come and be a part of the churches that I was able to serve. I am no longer a consumer ecclesiologist. I no longer seek approval for what I believe. I'm also not a prosperity theologian. I'm not one of these people who believes that if you follow Jesus, everything will be better. That if you follow Jesus, the struggle will be eased. That if you follow Jesus, the answers will be apparent. That if you follow Jesus, somehow your life is drastically and dramatically improved. Jesus is the one who said, pick up your cross and follow me. Jesus said, if they persecute you, don't worry about it. They persecuted me. It's tough to be a follower. It's why I humbly say I am a Jesusist. I am a Jesusist who tries to follow the one who says, serve, don't be served. He says if you can be more inclusive and more compassionate and more charitable and more just and more humble with your life, if you can love and make it a greater part of who you are, do so. Jesus always asks the question, are you being all that you can be? While I'm at it, let me say something about science. I am not one of these people who says science is the answer. I believe in science. The reason I believe in science is because it does not believe it is the answer. Science believes that when it discovers something, it has to ask that something a question. Is there more? Here's a vaccine. Here's a virus. The vaccine can help make the virus controlled, but it can't. Could it be able to be eradicated? So science keeps asking the question. Science doesn't conclude. As long as I'm breathing, I don't either. Science evolves. Life evolves. I choose evolution. I choose to follow Jesus, which means I live the questions. If we believe the testimony of Jesus, we have a different struggle in our life. We have a struggle that matters. If we take this faith journey sojourn seriously, it appears that we will never arrive at an area where we can say, whew, there are no more questions. We now know everything we need to know. Your questions often merge with mine. I know sometimes I feel like I'm the only one asking a question, but today I hope that's not true. There's been a little false advertising, but when I teach, there always is, because I tell you what we're going to deal with, and then we never get to it, as we haven't gotten to it yet today. Because I said we would look at what is prayer, and why does church and state need to be separated, and why does the spirit and the politic never need to be separated. And we will approach some of that, but it's your fault what happened. Because since Holy Week, some of you have asked another question. And it's not one of those three. And so I want to deal with that. And maybe today deal with it just in a little bit more length so that it doesn't come up every time it's heard or said. The question is Jesus the Son of God, the Son of Man, or both? And there are some who would say, or neither. There are two prefixes that might help us in this understanding of son of. One of them is bar. That's Aramaic. It means son of. We just had a scripture reading a week or so ago. Here's a word, a name. It means courage. So if you say bar tolme, you're saying son of courage. We transliterate that in English to Bartholomew. Bar, son of courage. Just another example. Noboi means consolation. So if there were some constellation that had a son, it would be called Bar Nobai, or to transliterate, Barnaby. That's how those names were. And Hebrews took very seriously naming. All Hebrews did not speak Aramaic. So the Hebrew word for son, or one of, is ben. How about Ben Yamin? Yamin is a Hebrew word that means south in direction, or right hand in assistance. Yamin. So Ben Yamin gets translated Benjamin, the 12th son of Jacob, the favorite from the southern tribe of Judah, sitting on the right hand of his father. Names meant a great deal. So if you called someone a son of, you needed to be very careful what you said, because they then would have the characteristics and the traits of that person. Here's another one. Her means brace or support. You may know the Old Testament story of as the Israelites were trying to establish their land and there were battles. They were winning the battles whenever Moses could stand before them and hold up his arms. But as he got older, like he couldn't hold his arms up very long, so we called Joshua to come and hold up his arm for him. And as this arm began to sag, he needed another brace, another support, so we called Hur. Ben-Hur, son of support. For those of you who are movie buffs, that transliterates in English Charlton Heston. I want to get serious again. Is Jesus Son of Man or Son of God? Who's his father is another question. Is Yosef his father? Yosef transliterates Joseph. Yosef means God has another son. Yosef is told to name his son Joshua. When we read our scriptures, it says Jesus, because Jesus is a transliteration of Joshua. There are two verbs that are connected to make the word Joshua. One of those verbs is yasha. Yasha means to be delivered. Yasha means to be saved. Another verb is sawa. Sawa means to cry out. Cry out to one who saves. Cry out to one who can deliver. Yasawa, Joshua. Jesus. If Jesus is one who saves, it's important to me to say to you what I believe, what my belief is, that is meant when we cry, save us. Save us from a meaningless life. Save us from a life that is so turned in on ourselves that we're trying to determine what's going to make it peaceful for us, what's going to make it beneficial for us. How can I get what I want out of this thing called life? Save me from that. Save me to a life that has meaning, that matters. Save me for a life for others. Save me to be a servant, not to be served. Save me so that when I'm sitting around feeling sorry for myself because it's such a rotten life and a rotten day and rotten things are happening, just get me out of that and help me go make it a good day for somebody else. If I can't have one, maybe they can. Maybe I'll discover that in serving, I have a good life. Save me. To say, son of, usually implies that the son has the characteristics of the of. What's the object of the preposition? Son of God. That person would have the characteristics of the divine. Son of man. That person would have the characteristics of the human. Son of God, Son of man. A complete human is also called Messiah, is also called Christ. Christ is one who is anointed for a special purpose. Were you? Are you? Do you understand that you are here for a special purpose? That you are son of purpose, that you are human and are called upon to be all that you can be. I just said to you that you are Christ. You are. I recommend to you Richard Rohr's book, Universal Christ. We all are Christ. We all are given a purpose, anointed for a purpose in this life. Take it, use it, make it the best you can make it. Like Jesus always asks, is this the best you can be? Is this the best you can do? So, the most common reference that Jesus used for himself, I am the Son of Man. I embody to the best of my ability the complete wholeness of what it means to be human. I choose to follow the one who wishes to be completely human. I choose to follow Jesus. It isn't easy. I'm the last one who will ever promote myself as being fully human. But I strive to be. And sometimes I just wonder why I don't do better. I follow Jesus. I ask questions. I have doubts. And then I follow Jesus. The Apostle Paul spent 20 years or so persecuting everybody who followed Jesus. Because if they followed Jesus, they couldn't be true to the religion that mattered. They couldn't be true to the Jewish faith. His eyes were opened. And he saw the Jewish faith as a blossom that was coming to fruition, that was blooming. And he said, I see something new. I feel something new. I sense that 20 years after Jesus died, that maybe this was the one I should follow. Paul wrote letters. We attribute 13 of them to him. He only wrote 7. I think the most pivotal letter he wrote is the letter to the Romans. It is filled with things that Paul found out when he decided to ask the question, is Jesus the Son of Man? I think that probably the best thing in the book of Romans is that Paul said, if you are the wholest you can be, if you are being as much human as you can be, then let your love be genuine. Hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty. Associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all, and, if it's possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Messiah, Christ, anointed to be all that we can be. Jesus, Son of God, Son of Man, both. Bar Abba, Son of the Father. Bar Adam, Son of the human. I'll let you decide for you, who is this one you follow? Perhaps that's been an answer for those who sought an answer. Perhaps it's been interesting to those who think it doesn't matter. For the rest of you, I hope you got a good cup of coffee while we take a look at it. I'm actually going to now look at one of the questions that we said we would look at. I want to look at the question of prayer. No matter how many times I or you have dealt with this subject, how do you pray? Why do you pray? Where do you pray? With whom do you pray? What do you say? It boils down to the simple question, what is prayer? And it's imperative, it seems to me, that each of us who prays has some kind of understanding and definition of that. Merriam-Webster has one. Webster says, prayer is a solemn request for help or an expression of thanks addressed to God or to an object of worship. I am glad Merriam-Webster is not my mentor, because I find that to be a totally inadequate definition of what prayer is. The definition of prayer that is offered has no real understanding of its place in the lives of people, in the lives of this culture. You and I watch television. We live in the same city, the same metropolitan area. Dante Wright was shot and killed by a police officer. Some people were so stunned they couldn't speak. Some people were so crushed they wept and sobbed. Some people protested, and they continue to protest against this case of systemic racism that kills blacks for their blackness and then tries to make up justifications for why we did that. Some see any event like this as a chance for violence and lawlessness, and that's not part of the core of what's going on. That's the peripheral of people who take advantage of others and their grief. And then there are those who pray. They drop to their knees. They join hands with others. They lift their palms skyward. For hours, for days, in events yet to come, people will pray. At athletic events, there will be moments of silence. Everybody will be silent. Some will bow their heads. Some that bow their heads don't even pray. They don't know what prayer is. They have never prayed, but they know what prayer means to the culture. Prayer is for our culture, regardless of our religion, necessary, often vital to the way we deal with our crises and our grief and our pain and our uncertainties. Certainly, prayer is also a way we celebrate victories, where we celebrate wonder and awe, where we celebrate the miracles of health to people with illnesses for whom there should have been no cure. We embrace prayer as a culture. Any who wonder about prayer do not wonder about the reality that we do it, that many, many, many people pray. But that is not to say that everyone who prays or everyone who considers that they are praying thinks of themselves as doing the same thing. My prayer life has had some dramatic changes. For those of you who remember, I always used single words as an English teacher to cue me. There are 3 words that would give me an opportunity to talk to you about my prayer life. To, with, and that. The first one. Who do you pray to? Is there someone to whom you are praying? Is there some being somewhere that you're addressing some thoughts, hopes, prayers, wishes, desires, pain? Who do you pray to? I did that for, I suppose, the first 15 years of my life, maybe 20. Sometime during that period of time, I was the servant in a musical called Amal and the Night Visitor. And as I was singing my part and carrying all the stuff that I had to carry in this staged pilgrimage at the First Congregational Church of Robbinsdale, I heard a word that I seemed to have heard for the first time. As we stood looking at the manger, and someone said that in the manger was Emmanuel, God with us. I said, if God is with us, why have I been praying to God, who I thought was in heaven? Maybe I should pray with God. Maybe, since my prayers weren't always working, I mean, I was losing members of my family were dying, and I prayed they wouldn't. Members of my family were getting sick, and I prayed they wouldn't. I found out at age 12 that I was adopted, that my stepmother became married to my father, and my mother had died when I was a year old. And I wondered if my dad had prayed to God that she wouldn't die of cancer. I personalize this so you walk with me, because Emmanuel walks with us. God is with us, says Emmanuel. And so when I pray now, I pray like, okay, God, what are we going to do about this? Okay, God, do you have any ideas for what you want me to do? Okay, God, what are you going to do? Because this is way beyond something I can do. And we talk about life and people and journeys, and then I drifted away from that, from praying to or praying with, because I began to believe that prayer has got to be more than something we're seeking to have answered. When I grew up, some of the techs and I this morning were talking about things that we older techs know and the younger techs don't. We were talking about things like gold bond stamps and green stamps. And I also want to talk about flags in windows with blue stars. And then walking by that home and seeing that that flag was no longer hanging with a blue star, but now was hanging with a gold star, because that family had lost a son or a husband, a member of their family to the military. And I said to myself, how could the McAndrewses lost their son? They and we across the street were praying that Andy would come home. Don't prayers, well, some came home from war. Some came home with all their limbs. Who decides? Is it God's will that some come and some don't? And I began to say, perhaps it's life. It's the source of what goes on in life. And so I said to myself, maybe what you need to do is have a discipline of prayer. Because you're not praying to somebody, you're not praying with somebody, you're praying that certain things in your life, in the lives of your friends, in the lives of your family will go well, or better, or more meaningfully. When I was young, I was taught a discipline of prayer. I now apply it. It was a discipline I was using when I was praying to God. It's a prayer that has adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. I still have those things in my prayer life. Prayer life is prayer is more important to me now than it's ever been. Maybe it's because I'm old enough now that I look at the world and I say it's in a greater mess than it's ever been. You've done a really good job, Jim. You're supposed to be making a difference, Jim. Make a difference, at least to those around you, at least to the community in which you live, at least to the church with whom you have pledged your life. And so, my adoration today is for those of you who have been walking with me, for the beauty of a sunrise, for the wonder of creation, for the joy of health for those who didn't have it, for the desire of health for those who do. I thank myself in the way that I am able to adore all of those things and people, and confess that I'm not very good at doing what I should do sometimes. Confess that there are things I could be doing that I haven't done, and there are things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing, and how do I get rid of the things I shouldn't do and absorb the things I should? I'm talking, that's what I want to do. And thankfully, I have a partner, I have a family, I have a church, I have others with whom I can do that. The supplication is, you are not always a part of my supplications, friends, but you are often there. I do pray for those who are sick. I pray for those who are well. I pray for those in this family of faith. I pray for those who are aging and wish they weren't. I pray for those who are aging and are glad they can. I pray for those who can do as long as they're able and are doing, because prayer for me pushes my compassion button. It's a discipline. I do it because it pushes a button. Prayer admits that I am vulnerable. Prayer is a time when I open my heart to let some feeling in. Prayer connects us in spirit with those about whom and for whom I pray. Prayer is a time to open up this mind, to seek thoughts about how we can wisely use the gifts that we have. I have a lot of gifts. Am I using them? Am I unwrapping them? Am I keeping the lid on them? I'm letting out. Prayer is a time to open the doorway of life, especially for those people who don't even have a key. There are people stumbling, and if you're not stumbling all the time, but only some of the time, help somebody who's just trapped. Get out of that trap. Give them a key. Help them open the door. Prayer is a time to be engaged with the Christ that is in all of us. That which is a full expression. My prayer always ends with not amen. I always end my prayer with two phrases. I love my partner. I love you, Diane. And I am alive. I still breathe. Prayer. We got to do it. It's part of who we are. The way we do it is important that you feel some comfort in the way you pray. I encourage all of you to pray because in it is a healing power of life. So what happened to church and state? What happened to spirit and politic? Fortunately, the Adult Education Committee was chancing enough to say, could you come back in May? So in May, we'll try to take care of those two questions. Right now, I want to pray something for that we all could pray. That we are a community, O love, we thank you. That we are a community, O life, we give you thanks. That we have more to do, we will do. We look for the power from each other to in gratitude unwrap the gift of life together. And finally, we wrap our arms around all of those we love who need to know this day that we care and we connect because we are who we are and we are Valley. We are alive. Thanks for tuning in. Tune back at 10 and join us for worship.